All right, Sam, let's get started. Can you hear me clearly?
Hi there.
Ubisoft faced the challenge of expanding an already successful series.
We wanted to keep all Tom Clancy universe, all the intensity, all the tension, and creating new situation where our new hero would appear.
But who would that new hero be?
Sam Fisher.
Looking at the description in the script, Sam was a seasoned veteran.
He's the only one to do this job. He's calm, he's confident, focused, instinctive, a survivor.
He was once part of the CIA. He was also a Navy SEAL at one point.
Obstacles would be faced.
Splinter Cell was a new kind of game for us, new challenges, new technology.
The biggest challenge, I think, was to walk the fine line between the gameplay and realism.
And the game had to impress its toughest judge.
Tom Clancy is involved on every big step of the development.
Yet in the end, this team of artists, designers, programmers, and musicians would create what could become one of the greatest Xbox games of all time.
The whole thing is a lot more intense now.
A lot of actors in this game.
Right now, what's in the game is exactly what we wanted.
Join us for a special episode of Icons and see the amazing story behind the birth of Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell. In 1998, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six is released, and the face of action gaming is changed forever. The Clancy brand earns a reputation for realistic gameplay and fast action. 4 years after that initial release, Ubisoft hopes to take the Clancy brand to a whole new level.
It all started with Ubisoft's intention to develop a new kind of game under the Tom Clancy franchise.
And the gears start turning.
We wanted to keep all Tom Clancy universe, all the intensity, all the tension, the mix of geopolitical environment and high technology military situation. We wanted to keep all this and creating new situations where our new hero would appear.
Most of the previous Clancy titles were first-person shooters.
We had a lot of discussion between the kind of game we wanted to create in terms of the view, the camera view. Because to promote our hero with all the action he's doing, all the cool moves he's doing, we need to see him, so third-person view is required.
The decision is made to create a third-person stealth action game.
We've developed a mix in between that allows all the enjoyment of seeing a character and all the action and the freedom of controlling the free camera.
Development of Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell begins.
Everybody's been real coy about what exactly I'm allowed to know.
It's the nature of the agency. We don't let any one person know everything.
Splinter Cell is a bit different than other Clancy games. It is not based on a book or on a movie. We tried to do a lot of research on gadgets, on weapons, on clothing, on political environments.
And the team at Ubisoft gets an okay from the big guy himself, Tom Clancy.
When we came to him to propose the concept, he was impressed about all the details and all the realism behind it.
But who would be the new hero the team will use to get this game off the ground?
Actually, when I started on the project, the very first design that I did was just a silhouette coming out of the shadows. I wanted to go for a design that would make him recognizable, where you'd have the silhouette and the 3 dots, actually lights emanating from the night vision.
And a grizzled secret agent named Sam Fisher is created.
Looking at the description in the script, Sam was a seasoned veteran. We were talking about a soldier with past experience. He was once part of the CIA. He was also a Navy SEAL at one point.
He has a huge background of experience as he used to work for the CIA, operating in the Middle East and Eastern country.
Are we working with the CIA's cooperation?
Blaustein is outfitted with subdermals just like yours. That'll be your best lead to find him.
You didn't answer my question.
We'll tell you what you need to know.
He's the only one to do this job. He's calm, he's confident, he's focused, he's instinctive, and is a survivor, actually.
Keeping that in mind, just coming up with the look and just visually what his face would look like.
A distinct wardrobe is a must for this super spy.
As for Sam's suit, using the stuff that was mentioned in the script, the fact that he was an ex-Navy SEAL, the thing that was difficult about coming up with something original and also realistic was, as much as possible, I wanted to see elements that are used by actual Navy SEALs inside Sam's suit, but also make him look different from stuff that had been seen before in other games or in movies. So the elements that were kept were the wetsuit that are used by Navy SEALs, actually the Navy SEAL scout swimmers. It gave them that sleek stealth look and also make them look a little more heroic in that sense. So we kept that detail in there. We've combined that with cargo pants to make him look military. And also a lot of his equipment is lightweight, compact. Since Sam is a solo operative, we didn't want to have objects that were too cumbersome in the suit, stuff that would make him stand out as either making too much noise or be in the way whenever he does any of the moves and stuff like that. So the wetsuit was a good addition to that because it was really stuck to the body.
The next step is to bring Sam to life.
When we started, we had to pick between motion capture and hand-drawn animation.
Ubisoft makes a somewhat surprising decision.
We decided to go with hand-drawn because we wanted to have our own style. The movement is fairly realistic, but we wanted Sam to have a unique touch.
And the painstaking work begins.
Usually when we start an animation, we just set up like a few key poses, and then we give a draft to the engineer so they can start working on the basic controls, and then we come back to those animations and tweak them to add secondary motion and play again with the timing. We would use video footage of ourselves acting a movement, and use it as a reference for key poses and timing.
Sam's more spectacular moves take a bit of finesse.
For a complex move like the split jump, we'll go directly to 3D and use a basic animation notion to get to the final animation that fits the style that we set up in the beginning.
And sometimes strict realism isn't the best choice.
The biggest challenge, I think, was to walk the fine line between the gameplay and realism. Realistic animations tend to be long with a lot of secondary motion, while the gameplay needs to react on the spot. So to find the right animation that fits the controls and at the end to look realistic was, I think, the biggest challenge.
Good job, Fisher.
Splinter Cell now has its hero, but Sam needs a challenge to face and a world to protect. As it turns out, Ubisoft has impressive plans for both. Ubisoft has a tough-as-nails hero for Splinter Cell, its new Tom Clancy game. Now they have to create a world for him to save, and that world just happens to be the USA.
The story is about a rogue president, Kombay Nikoladze, of former Soviet Georgia.
Industry baron Kombay Nikoladze seized power today in a bloodless coup, installing himself in the presidential palace behind a wall of political and military support.
Who declares war on the United States using techniques of information warfare, empowered terrorism and propaganda.
Nikoladze just declared war on the U.S. The Georgians hit our communications, transportation, power grids. We still don't know how extensive the damage is.
Against this new face of terrorism, the U.S. military is powerless. The NSA National Security needs to react.
Good to see you again. I trust NSA orientation is going well?
Well enough.
The reaction needs to create a new sub-agency called Third Echelon, which is a standalone operative who acts on the field, supported by a group of strategists.
This Third Echelon is a splinter cell of the U.S. government that will do whatever it takes to ensure the safety of its homeland. And on the front lines is Sam Fisher.
Third Echelon is a brand new initiative. The role aggressive intelligence operations will play in NSA's future will depend largely on your performance.
When Sam Fisher is on the field, they don't care about international treaties or politic agreement. He needs to do what he needs to do. It could be good thing, it could be bad things. However, he cannot be detected because if he fails, the United States government will instantly deny any involvement in this kind of mission, and Sam Fisher will become in deep trouble.
That was pretty tight. Still breathing?
Doing my best.
Sam's first mission for the Third Echelon is to investigate the disappearance of 2 CIA agents. He'll have to use gadgets, deadly force, and stealth to accomplish his objectives. In the world of espionage, the shadows are a spy's best friend.
When we started the Splinter Cell with this stealth concept idea, we wanted to create this interactive environment where the character can make his own path by using the environment. And as a stealth game is all about shadow and lighting, we explore this idea of being able to shut down or turn off some lights using Xbox technology and using Unreal technology. By modifying the engine, we've been able to create this complete freedom for the player.
As it turns out, some friendly competition helps motivate the Splinter Cell team.
Also, we saw the demo for Doom 3. They did some very interesting lighting effect, and we wanted to make something as equally impressive for Splinter Cell. Before we discovered the dynamic lighting system, the traditional way to do lighting requires you to create very specific rules for every single object in the room that you wanted to be lit. So in order to create an environment rich with shadow, we had to design a new dynamic lighting system.
It turned out that our global dynamic lighting system that we've developed under Unreal technology is really perfect for this kind of situation.
The idea of dynamic lighting is quite simple. Everything in the game world casts shadow, light, and shadow become a global effect. This means that the player could interact with light and shadow like never before. They can use shadow to hide in. They could also detect enemies by seeing only their shadow.
Let's work on stealth. Your gun should always be a last resort. Invisibility is your best weapon.
The player can make his own decision. He can play safe by shooting most of the light and make a safe path through the level. He can also decide to shoot a little more on the enemy, or he can also decide to use the environment to create distractions and sneak behind the guards.
This high-tech lighting system is a highlight of a game with jaw-dropping good looks.
We realized that Splinter Cell had a lot of unique elements, but we wanted to attract players to the game on a visual basis. We had to get them to pick up the game first before they could discover all the other features.
And one of Splinter Cell's most striking features is the inclusion of soft bodies.
Soft bodies are anything in the environment that isn't solid, like balloons, curtains, and flags. We designed soft bodies to interact directly with the dynamic lighting to create realistic, striking visuals. This enables us to do some very cool things like making light and shadow appear through curtains. This was the visual unique we need to differentiate Splinter Cell from the other game.
But everyone knows that appearance isn't everything. Ubisoft's game designers must ensure that Splinter Cell's gameplay lives up to its spectacular visuals.
Overall, the game designer is responsible for the core design and the core mechanics and the core systems of the game. But as distinct from a level designer, the level designer's job is really to build the content of the game. They build the actual environment, so you need to make sure that things are consistent, that the player is learning from level to level how to pass the necessary challenges, and those challenges aren't just changing randomly from level to level. A door always needs to open the same way for the player on level 1 or level 12. Guns need to work in a consistent fashion. All the systems need to be consistent because you can't keep teaching the player the same systems again and again. You have to make sure he learns them once and then is able to build on that knowledge rather than having to learn the same things multiple times.
A big part of good game design is how well it challenges the player.
We try and control the progression of difficulty by combining and mixing challenges as the game progresses. You'll have similar challenges throughout the game. Starting on level 1, you'll learn how to climb a pipe. Come level 3, you'll want the player to have to climb that pipe again, but in a slightly different, slightly more challenging scenario where there might be an enemy looking out the window. And then in level 5 or level 7, you're going to have the player climbing a pipe with an enemy looking out the window with a moving dynamic light searching the area of the pipe. He's timing his movements against a passive enemy or a semi-active enemy, which is the searchlight, as well as against a threat enemy, which is the guard in the window, all three at once.
And some lessons are learned as the team works on the game.
The level design process evolved in a way that we started to make our maps huge. Then we realized that it was that we would not be able to reach the quality that we wanted graphically. So we shrunk the whole thing and ended up with a lot more intense gameplays because the player feel a lot more in enemy territory, I would say, because when the enemy are passing in front of him, the whole thing is a lot more intense now.
Making the world as realistic as possible means creating an environment that is truly interactive.
Another big part of level design was to offer the player a fully interactive environment in a way that the player can shoot objects, can throw objects. He can shoot a computer, he can shoot a chair, he can shoot a desk. He can also take a can and throw it so he can distract enemies. It was really very important for us to allow the player to shoot lights. It's a huge part of our game. So the gameplay of shooting a light feel more safe because he's in the darkness. This is a huge part of the game. At one point, we were not sure if we wanted all the lights to be breakable because it was causing us some technical problems. But it turned out that shooting lights allow for a different and totally different gameplay experience depending on how you play.
Creating these levels is a team effort.
The process of creating a map started with design on paper. Basically, the level designers and modelers were teamed up to create a document that enable us to fill the map first on paper. Then the level designer's job was to put the whole thing on 3D. Then it was possible to test the AI, test the rhythm of the map. Then after that, it was the graphic part, where the modelers and texture had to create the look of the game, the look of the map. When that was done, we tested this thing, we tweaked it.
As Splinter Cell moves closer to completion, a group of musicians and sound artists are hard at work creating audio on par with the game's breathtaking visuals. While a team of artists and designers make sure Ubisoft's new Clancy game, Splinter Cell, looks and plays like no game before it, artists of a different medium are hard at work on another component of the highly anticipated release.
The first thing we did was much research. I'm a big fan of research. I asked for the game Bible. I did a lot of reading in that Bible to help me get into the game and get into the characters. And that directly helped me pick which sounds I was going to use.
Do we have resources to evac this guy?
I said don't bother. Whatever Madison found, it's big.
So we tried to attack Splinter Cell with that notion of developing a music style that was not overused and would still benefit the game and the gameplay. So what we did was we brought in a whole bunch of different styles together, from classical to electronica to ambient to world, and trying to find a happy balance between all three of them to come up with the sound.
Great strides are made to ensure that the way Splinter Cell sounds is every bit as captivating as the way it looks and plays.
I was sent quite a few AVIs and videotapes of the game so that I could watch the game and actually play my music along with it to see how it was working with the game. And so that was very beneficial, especially since we've got actual movement on video that I can put my music up against and see how the emotion of my music works with the character on screen.
You trained and very cool, calm and collected, but at the same time you want to have a connection with him as a human being who's facing danger.
And some unique instruments are used to enhance the soundtrack.
We did use a few, let's say, ethnic instruments in the areas that we're at. When we're in Georgia, we have some Georgian guitars and Armenian voices, and when we're in Burma, we've got some Burmese voices and some Burmese drums and things like that. Just the light flavor of it, so it doesn't turn out to be a world disc, but it does give a flavor and helps drive through the game.
An equal amount of attention is devoted to sound effects.
As a sound engineer, I think that probably the most important thing is to be able to have oral imagination, to be able to imagine hear in your head how it should sound, and then be able to produce those sounds, have the techniques to be able to make those sounds. Our sound effects are created from the bottom up. When we have a gun sound, we record a gun. And it's that attention to detail with all of the sounds and making them be truly unique for this game. Whilst they're pulled together from various engineers and various studios, it's pretty coherent. All of the music is written for this game. All of the sound effects are designed for this game.
Stay quiet. You don't want your life to end in the boys' room.
All of the Foley is very specific to this game, so that's how we avoid it sounding disparate in the fact that it's made for one vision. I work with our sound effects editors and some of the choices that they're making in terms of the types of sound effects and how big or small, how realistic or how movie-like they need to be. A lot of actors in this game. There's over 200 characters, I think, in total. So keeping track of who was doing what, why and when, I try and do that. So when the character wants to know, do I like this guy? Do I not like this guy? Am I going to kill him? I try and know.
The end result is an aural masterpiece. But before the game ships, the team has to get final approval from Tom Clancy, the best-selling author and creator of the franchise.
Tom Clancy is involved on every big step of the development, from the approval of the concept to the redaction of the scenario until the final validation of the title. You always need to justify everything, and Tom Clancy does that all the time in his books by justifying gadgets, clothing, situation, military-wise or medically-wise or scientifically. People really believe what is written in his book, and we try to do exactly the same thing in the game by using gadgets that already exist or are in research in the US Army.
Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell for the Xbox is shipped to stores in late 2002.
You're about to touch down in Georgia. Get ready.
The release is met with critical praise. The game includes Xbox Live support, which allows users to download new content online. The Splinter Cell team is pleased with what it's achieved.
Splinter Cell was a new kind of game for us, new challenges, new technology.
We did meet practically all the goals that we set out to accomplish. Right now, what's in the game is exactly what we wanted.
Yet they're already thinking of a follow-up title to continue the Splinter Cell story.
I think the only thing that we couldn't accomplish was to put all the ideas we had since the beginning just because of time constraints. But you never know. It might show up in the sequel.
Well, first, Ubisoft brought me in as a technical advisor. For the sake of realism, they wanted input from someone who actually... well, somebody who actually does this kind of work. So here I am, hanging off everything in the office while Steve and the animators are filming me, you know, to see how I move. Man, I must have spent hours doing the split jump. I hated that part of the job.